Frederick O'Neal is perhaps best remembered as the co-founder of the American Negro Theater, which he established principally with Abram Hill in 1940. Like Frederick Douglass, for whom he was named, O'Neal was endowed with unimpeachable integrity and self-determination.
In 1936, I came to New York, and there my first work was with Dick Campbell in his particular group there, the Rose and the Crimson Player.
For the next decade after its founding, the American Negro Theater embraced the spirit of its predecessors, and O'Neal and his staff laid the groundwork for the Negro Ensemble Company, the new Lafayette Theater, Frank Silvera's Writers' Workshop, and generally paved the way for the insurgent black theater movement of the 60s. Among the illustrious alumni of the ANT, that was located in the basement of the Schomburg Library in Harlem, are Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Ruby Dee, and Clarice Taylor.
My name is Gertrude Jeanette. I got acquainted with the American Negro Theater in 1942. I was taking classes at the Abyssinia Baptist Church, the Reverend Clayton Powell Church. He ran a WPA school down in the basement, and I was taking a business course down in the basement. And Fred O'Neal was also there taking the same course. And he noticed that I stammered. And he said, after the class was over, he introduced himself to me and said, "We have organized the American Negro Theater. It's right in the basement of the library. And we got wonderful speech teachers there, and I think they can help you with your stammering." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Come around and join us." So later I did go around. I joined the American Negro Theater to take what I thought would be just a speech class. But the rule was that you'd have to take the whole course. That meant acting, lighting, dancing, voice, cleaning toilets, cleaning stage, painting flats. All of that was included in the course.
The American Negro Theater was one of the first theaters that said, we can do it ourselves. And they had 2 or 3 projects that swish, when you can do it yourself, white Americans always say, "Oh, wow, we better grab that." So they grabbed out of Lucasta, moved to Broadway, and moved those artists into another kind of economic structure. And that economic structure meant, wow, man, I can pay my rent now. I can send my kids to school now. I can get paid for my art, okay? While nationalists said, okay, I'm gonna get me a regular job and do my art on the side. My art is never gonna be able to pay for sending my kids to school, paying my rent. I gotta get me a regular job. I gotta be a social worker or architect or something else, you know what I mean? But Fred O'Neal and that group of artists was one of the first who said, I can survive on my art, And they coalesced with everybody from Theodore Bickel to Herschel Bernardi to Julian Mayfield, all these wonderful artists, who were a part of the radical left.
We produced a play called Anna Lucasta, and it was quite successful. And we had a number of people who wanted to take it to Broadway. And the producer that won out was Jack Wildberg, taking almost all of the people who were in the play.
Of course, hardly anybody knows about that play today, especially young people. And in a way, why should they? But the fact was, it was an enormous success in Harlem. And a Broadway producer, John Wildberg, came up to see it. Well, everybody came up to see it. And the theater was on 135th Street, in the basement of the Schomburg collection. A small stage, but those limousines were there, and we were playing the packed houses, and Mr. Wildberg said, well, I'll take it down, put it on Broadway.
Most of our people who had gone on to Broadway then looked upon the American Negro Theater as going backwards. You know, they wanted to move on in their careers. And of course, I think that perhaps there's a good deal of truth to that statement that the biggest success was the cause of our failure.
Belafonte, in his recently published memoir, recalled his tenure with the A&T and O'Neal's success in providing black actors with respectable and dignified roles. Despite a remarkable debut on stage in the 30s, critically acclaimed Broadway performances in the 40s, and impressive film credits in the 50s, O'Neal was not content to get a mere foot in the door of the Great White Way in Hollywood while suffering through a welter of stereotypical roles. Something had to be done, and he began forging change on and off stage, in front of and behind the camera. Meanwhile, O'Neal was a tireless advocate for the arts through his union activity, and most notably his leadership of the Actors' Equity Association from 1964 to 1973, where he was the first African-American president. And the dedication he invested so relentlessly on behalf of such prominent local institutions as the Harlem Cultural Council and the Schomburg Corporation was also extended to the international arena. It was not until his final breath in 1992 that O'Neal relinquished his place on the ramparts for the arts and black theater.